very few minute delay while Facebook streams us over. I'm going to get my other screen going. I'm so excited. This is so fun. And we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am thrilled to be hosting Sophie Hannah, author of The Killings at Kingfisher Hill, out today in the U.S. Sophie, welcome. Tell us about your book.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Well, The Killings at Kingfisher Hill is my fourth Poirot novel, and it's a murder mystery, as are all my others. It starts with Poirot and his sidekick, Inspector Catchpool, travelling by luxury passenger coach from London to the gated, exclusive and very posh Kingfisher Hill estate in the English countryside. And the reason they're going there is that they have been summoned by a man called Richard Devonport, who lives there. They've been summoned because Richard's fiancée, Helen, has been charged with the murder of Richard's brother, Frank. And she's about to be hanged for this murder. And Richard is convinced that she's innocent. And so he has asked Poirot's help in proving Helen's innocence. So Poirot and Catchpool are on their way to Kingfisher Hill. And on the coach, there's a woman behaving very strangely. And about 10 minutes into the coach trip, she leaps up out of her seat and says, "I cannot sit in this seat any longer or someone will murder me." And Poirot asks her questions. She comes out with this very bizarre story about a warning that she got from a stranger that if she sits in that particular seat, she'll be murdered. And it all seems very fanciful to Poirot. But then when they arrive at Kingfisher Hill, very shortly afterwards, there is a murder. A body, an unrecognizable, unidentifiable body turns up at the Devonport family home. And there's a note on the body that has a reference to the seat you shouldn't have sat in. And so Poirot obviously thinks there must be a connection between this dead body and the incident with the woman on the coach. And so he then has to investigate not only who really killed Frank Devonport, but also who is this dead body in the house and who murdered them and how are the two connected.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I am reading it and it is so freaking good. I absolutely love it. I love the moodiness. I love the atmosphere that you created. I love how you embody Hercule Poirot. I love his dynamic. It's very witty and sort of, there's a levity to it. It's very funny, but it's also so clever. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I have gotten past the part of the woman behaving very strangely on the train, and I can't figure out what, is she tormented? Is this for real? How can it be? It's just so great. I absolutely love it. So I want to get into all of these things, like how did you create it? But first, I have to share just a few words of the incredible praise that you have earned for this book. The Washington Post saying classic Christie captures the essence of the originals without being a slavish imitation. Christie aficionados will delight. Publishers Weekly awarding it a starred review saying bestseller Hannah displays her superior ability to devise mind-blowing setups. I love that. Also saying that Hannah does a superb job of channeling Agatha Christie with dazzling deductions, subtle cluing, false endings, and superb prose. Lovers of classic whodunits can only hope Hannah continues to offer her take on the great Belgian detective. USA Today say Sophie Hannah does an egoless, silky job. I haven't heard the word silky before in a review, and I love it because it's so true. It was the perfect word of reviving Agatha Christie's beloved Belgian detective Hercule Poirot. Enough so that Hannah turns to Ms. Marple next. The New York Times book review also giving you an incredible review. Congratulations. What's that like first of all, I also want to tell our audience that the Agatha Christie estate and family gave their blessing for you to continue to write Hercule Poirot, and you've been doing so since 2014 with incredible success, hitting immediate #1 bestsellers in the Times. What's that like for you to carry on this incredible legacy of Agatha Christie?
Well, I mean, it's an amazing honor. You know, when I was a teenager, first reading all of Agatha Christie's books, I would never have in a million years thought that I ever could or should write new Poirot novels. It would simply never have occurred to me. If anyone had said that that might one day happen, I would have thought it was as unlikely as me one day becoming the Queen of England, you know. So very weird, but it's a huge honor. And it's been really nice to sort of, I mean, one thing I didn't foresee when I agreed to write these books was that I would effectively become a sort of Agatha Christie missionary, traveling all over the world, spreading the word about how much I love Agatha. And it's been just wonderful.
Oh, it is wonderful. And it's so wonderful to see you carry on her tradition in your own unique way while being so authentic to the character himself. Both the prose, the way that you tell the story that you tell, it's all so beautifully and so seamlessly done. Clearly, I'm not the only one that thinks so, because you've earned these amazing, amazing rave reviews from industry and press. Absolutely, just so thrilled to have you. I want to welcome all of our friends on Facebook. So I'll be monitoring your questions over here on my second screen because I'm fancy that way. So if anyone has any questions about the book, about Sophie, who's also a poet, a crime writer, and a poet, who is this amazing mystery maven, just go ahead and type them right in the comments, and I will get them right over to Sophie. So if you, whatever questions you have about her book, about her writing, please do. Got right into it. So, well, let's talk about that. So you are a poet and a mystery writer. What's the overlap, if any? Do you have two different brains that you just segment these two, or what? Or do you weave them together? What's that like?
I think there is a massive overlap or connection between the kind of poetry I write, which is sort of metrical, rhyming, formal poetry, and the kind of crime novels I write, which are very, you know, plotty, intricate plots. And for me, the connection is an obsession with structure. So in a poem of the sort I write, every word has to be exactly correctly balanced in relation to every other word. Everything has to be in the right position. And it's exactly the same with a tightly plotted crime novel. So for me, those two really have a lot in common. And I mean, actually, in a way, the most unusual thing I write, given that I'm a crime writer, is I also write self-help books. So I've written a self-help book.
Yes, about the grudge, about holding
To hold a
grudges.
grudge, yeah,
Yeah.
in which I argue that holding a grudge in the right way is actually very good for you rather than bad for you, as most people think. And I just read so many self-help books that said, you know, whatever they were about, every single self-help book I read seemed to say, oh, and by the way, never hold a grudge. And every time I read that, I'd be like, hang on a minute, it's not as simple as that. So that's probably my most far from, although I guess even that's connected to crime fiction, because in crime fiction, people kill each other because they have grudges. So maybe it's all connected.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I actually saw the Grudge book whilst doing my homework, because I'm, a straight A nerd over here who always does her homework. And I cannot wait to read that book, because I don't know. I actually I did a semester in London at City University, and I got to know British culture a bit. And of course, I'm over here in the U.S. full time. And in the U.S., we have an incredible obsession with the concept of forgiveness. It's very Oprah culture over here, right? And for me, I have always, it sounds like you, sort of hesitated to say, well, should we be forgiving everybody? Or maybe we should be holding a grudge in a more healthy way, because this obsession with forgiveness and this compulsion to forgive and to reach forgiveness and find forgiveness as though it's some sort of redemption has never really resonated with me personally. But I'm also an Italian woman who likes to hold a grudge. So I can't wait to read that. And what you said about poetry and crime fiction, that is so clever and so true, because I hadn't thought of that. I thought to myself when I asked the question, there can't possibly be something related here. They must be two very separate parts. Like there's poet Sophie, and then there's, Agatha Christie Sophie, and never the two shall meet. But you're so right. It is about structure. That makes sense. And when I'm reading, as we've just learned, your silky prose, I see that very careful attention to detail and choosing just the right word where it's so perfect, where you think, ooh, it gives you a sense of something more than just the scene. I get it. And that makes so much sense. I absolutely love that. Let's talk about your plotting, because every single one of those rave reviews, which you have earned through your incredible writing, talks about your ability to plot and the twistiness, and also the complexity of it. So how do you do that? What's that process like?
I start off with an idea, and it's always either the idea for the beginning or the
Mhm.
idea for the ending.
Okay.
And I either work backwards or forwards, and I do a very, very detailed plan of the whole novel. And then I do a lot of editing at the planning stage because I like to separate out. I mean, I figure that writers are quite neurotic. I certainly can be quite neurotic. And if I had to work on the plotting and structure at the same time as writing beautifully and trying to bring the scene to life, that would feel like too much to be neurotic about at any given time. So what I do is I separate out the writing of each book into two distinct stages. One of them is the planning, and I pretentiously call that the story architecture.
I like it.
And then once I've got a really detailed plan, then I can look at it and have a sort of overview. And that's a great opportunity to think, is everything in the right place? Is there a good balance? Is the pace building up properly? And I often do lots of editing at that stage, moving bits of the plan around. And the beauty of that is that if you can do any editing at that stage before you've written everything into an actual book, then if you do need to change stuff, it's much easier to change in a plan than it is if you've got an entire book already written. Because if you've got an entire book already written, you need to, for example, take out a subplot. That subplot that you remove will inevitably be supporting some elements in the book that need to stay. And then you have to perform very complicated surgery, and it can take ages. But whereas at the planning stage, if you shuffle everything around until all the pieces seem to be in the right order, then you can know that your plot is solid and all working well and everything's correct. Then when I come to actually write the book itself, all I need to concentrate on is bringing that story to life in the best way possible and as well written as possible.
Wow. I'm having an aha moment, to use Oprah culture, because that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense when you break it down like that. That seems so logical. And I wish I had talked to you before before I started writing. So I'm on book number 2. I'm 6 years in.
Okay.
Foolishly did not plot hashtag poor jerk. And I just thought I would muscle my way through. Huge mistake, because now I've overwritten and now I'm trying to do
Yeah.
everything that you just said. And I find myself in a very tight and uncomfortable place. So I have sworn a blood oath to never do that again. And for all the reasons that you just said. So if I think for so long, I didn't want to plot because I thought I'm an artist. I'm a peacock. I've got to be able to fly. And I also was thinking that it was too mechanized, that it would reduce it. It would feel boring. And then that would yield a boring book because it would feel too mechanized. But when you've broken it down the way that you just did, I get it. And you're totally right. I want to tell everyone that actually Sophie has created a crime writing program, a master's degree in crime and thriller writing at University of Cambridge. So it's perhaps no surprise that she has given this level of thought to structure, to plotting. And I think we can all learn a lot from her. So how long does it take you to write this book?
Well, if you include the planning and
Yes.
all that story architecture that I just talked about, probably about 6 months. But the actual writing of the book itself, the writing of the proper first draft, only took about 2 months. And then the rewriting took about another month, about a month. Yeah. Yeah.
So from the germination of the idea, when it popped into your head, to the final draft, it was 6 months.
From when the first idea popped into my head, it was more like a year and a half, because what always happens is I have the first idea and then it just sits around in my brain until I have time to add bits to it. And, new ideas will occur to me and I'll add them to what I've already got. So start to finish, from first idea to finished product, it can be about a year to a year and 2 months. But the ideas will be percolating for a while before I start serious work on a book. And sometimes I can be finishing the edits on a previous book while brewing the ideas for the next one.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Because those are two very different mindsets, to be editing and also creating. So that's interesting that you're able to do that, to multitask. And then First of all, and I also want to say your cover is absolutely gorgeous. Was this the first cover that you saw? Or did this take revision? Do you love it? Tell us the story of the cover.
I love it. I've loved all my Poirot covers, both in the UK and the US. They are just beautiful, very different on both sides of the pond, but I just think they're all stunning. I will tell you that when the cover for this book first arrived, it was pretty much, I think we've changed the ring a bit. I can't remember what the original ring was. It was red, it was a ruby, but it was a different shape. But that was pretty much the first cover I was shown.
Well, I have to say, I think it is one of, if not the most beautiful book cover I've ever seen.
Oh, thank
I
you.
absolutely.
I don't know why I'm saying thank you because I didn't design it. It'll be some wonderful designer at William Morrow that designed it.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? Like, and red is my favorite color, so I own that. But
Oh,
it
brilliant.
gives you such a sense of this Agatha Christie book. And for our everyone who's watching home, this is a spot of blood on this ruby red ring. I mean, it's so classic, it's so classy, and it's absolutely beautiful. What about the title? Did that come to you in a flash of brilliance? Where in that year and a half process from the germination of the idea to the final draft, along with all of your careful plotting, when did the title come to you? And did it ever change?
Very early on, it came to me. It didn't exactly come to me. I just sort of thought, I knew that I wanted to have, so I'd had the Monogram Murders, that was my first Poirot novel. Then my third Poirot novel is called The Mystery of Three Quarters. And I thought, okay, I've had murder, I've had mystery, and I quite like having a word in the title that's very kind of traditional detective story type word. So I thought, what other words are there? So I thought killings. And then I just thought, okay, what about the killings at Kingfisher Hill? So I actually thought of the title before, when I was thinking of the title, I decided at that point that the estate was going to be called Kingfisher Hill. So I actually called the estate that in order to make that title work because I like the title so much.
I love the title. I mean, I just love everything about this. When I started reading this book, it arrived yesterday in the mail. And when I started reading it, it felt like just this wonderful, it felt like boarding the Orient Express. It felt like such a wonderful new adventure, but also very warm homecoming. So I'm absolutely enthralled. Now, when you're doing your plotting, how many pages are they usually? Because it sounds like you spend a lot of time plotting them.
Yeah, it varies. I mean, anything from 50 pages to 120 pages, usually somewhere around 50 to 70 pages of plan.
I love that you said that because I also, Jeffrey Deaver has been on this show actually twice, and he's a religious plotter. And
Yeah,
he was
I know.
exactly, and same as you, he was saying that he'll spend actually 6 to 9 months plotting and researching, and his will run up to 150 pages as well. And I actually had not heard that anyone before him, and now you. So that's really interesting and also reassuring. Now, when you do your plot and you're making sure that so that you invest that time in and moving things around to make sure it all works, you're able to tell, even though the book is not written yet, what is working or where the action points need to be, or where you need a little more or where you need to spread out the action or the narrative arc or the things that move it forward, or you don't really know until you in those things until you get into the minutia of writing.
Well, what I tend to think is that if I've got my solid plan, then while I'm writing the book, I can I mean, a lot of people think that if you do a plan, then it's somehow against the idea of creativity and spontaneity. What I find is if I've got my plan and I look at it and it's solid, then because I sort of relax and think the book's all sorted, what I find is that I have more spontaneous ideas and more things pop up. And it's not a problem because each thing that occurs to me that isn't in the plan, I then just get to choose. Do I prefer it to what's in the plan? If I do, then I stick it in. If I don't, then I stick to the plan. So for me, it actually maximizes those ideas because I know that I don't need to have any new ideas because I've got my plan. And weirdly, that frees me up and I start having loads of new ideas. So that works. That's why, when people say, oh, I don't want to do planning because it would ruin the spontaneity, that is not my experience at all.
Oh, I'm one of those people. I thought it would constrain my creativity, and I thought it would feel too mechanized, and I thought it would sort of, limit me. But but I love hearing this, and you're only just helping me to commit more fully to plotting the next one for all of these reasons. So is it through just experience that you knew, okay, I need to have about this much, about this far into the book, 10% or 10 pages or whatever it is, I need to have an action point, I need to be asking a question? Or how do you plot out those, what the engine that's moving the book forward?
Yeah, do you know, it's all very spontaneous and organic. So when I'm writing my plan and ideas are coming and I'm writing them down, I have an instinctive feel. I don't even sort of verbalize it or vocalize it to myself. It's just like, yeah, this will happen next. That feels right. Or sometimes I'll think of something, I go, no, that feels wrong. It is all purely done on instinct. If I had to, I could rationalize it and explain each decision. But because I'm only doing this like with myself on my own on my computer, I just sort of have an instinctive sense of, yeah, this is the way forward, or this isn't the way forward.
Oh, wow. So even though you have planned it out, you have plotted it out, you still do rely on instinct in that way.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think that's another thing that I always thought, is that there was no room for instinct if you were plotting or planning. And so it's so interesting
Well,
to
no, the
hear you
instinct
merge
comes
those.
in when I'm plotting and planning. So
Okay.
it's when I'm constructing the plan. So like I'll have my first idea. In the case of Kingfisher Hill, the very first idea that occurred to me was the coach incident and the woman. Although actually with Kingfisher Hill, that book came to me in a different way from all my others so far,
Ooh.
in that there didn't feel like there was a gap between the beginning hook idea and the rest. It was almost like it just arrived in my brain fully formed with all its components. Not, I mean, maybe not quite. What's weird is it's actually hard to remember how it happens after it's happened.
Mm. So do you ever feel, I know some writers, will say that they feel like they're in the flow, or that they are a conduit, or that
Yeah,
they're not even
exactly.
sure the words or the story is coming from them.
Yeah, and that happens to me when I'm plotting and planning. It's like my imagination is so used to putting crime plots together that it just comes and I instinctively know whether I think it feels right or feels wrong.
I love that. Now, what about for your first book, though, where you weren't an experienced crime writer? How did you
Yeah,
navigate that?
that was very different. I
Mm.
would say for my first 3 or 4 books, I wrote very enthusiastic. I mean, I made a plan, but not a comprehensive one. And I wasn't sure whether it was good or not. I just thought, well, it seems fine. But I hadn't yet developed any kind of inner editorial sense at all.
Mm.
So that took much more rewriting. For my first, actually, my second novel was quite straightforward, but for my first novel, I wrote it. There was a whole subplot in it which needed to come out, but I didn't realize that. So it took a while it took probably about 3 years for me to keep looking at it and go, still not right, but I'm not sure why. Whereas now, I just have an instinctive feel for what's going to work and what isn't. And so I spend much less time because I have better developed editorial instincts.
You flexed that writerly muscle. So
Yeah,
that has been earned through experience, you would say.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Now, so again, back to all these amazing reviews through that you have earned for your incredibly intricate plotting, and for your twisty details and twists and turns that suck these readers in and keep us hooked. Again, when you're looking at your plot, when you're looking at your plan, that's when you're thinking, oh, I need one more twist here, or oh, should I hook them a
Yeah,
little more here? Okay.
yeah. I'll look at the plan and think, is everything working as I want it to? And sometimes I'll think, I need a bit more of this here, I need a bit more of that there, and I'll just sort of add and take away. Sometimes with the twists at the end, trying to think of an example. Yeah, there's a twist at the end. It's not a Poirot novel, but one of my contemporary novels, which is called, in America, it's called Keep Her Safe. In England, it's called Did You See Melody? I had my plan and I wrote the book. And right at the end, I thought, I've just had an idea for an amazing, mind-blowing twist. And I just knew it was right. So I added it on. And that was very last minute.
Okay, cool. So you do sometimes make last minute changes to
Totally. Yeah, I follow my instincts all the time.
I
But
love it.
I'm only so confident and able to do that because I've got my solid plan. The two work together. This is what I always try, and when I'm being evangelical about planning, I always say it's not either or. The spontaneity and the good, fresh ideas and the creativity are actually enhanced if you have a good plan in the background.
I love that. You're such a fascinating blend, a marriage, a breeding of intuition and spontaneity and vigorous planning and meticulous plotting. It's just so interesting, fascinating. What do you think is the most important way to hook a reader and keep them up, saying just one more chapter till at 3 a.m.? What do you think the key is to writing a suspenseful mystery or
Well, I think in
thriller?
a way that's really hard to describe, but
Mm.
that's what I love about Agatha Christie's work, and that's what I've always loved about her work, is that I think she's better than anyone else at creating suspense, just creating that desperation in the reader to know the answer.
Mm.
And I think and so that's what I try to do in my books as well. I think it partly comes from the writer prioritizing the puzzle and the mystery element of the book. So I read lots of crime novels, which are really good, but I can tell that the writer, for them, the main thing isn't that the reader should be desperately puzzled and craving the solution to the puzzle. So
Mm.
for someone like me who loves the mystery and the puzzle element more than anything else, I think if you have that priority as a writer, it will just come through in the writing, because subliminally, I'm always trying to say to the reader, here's a real mystery. What could be going on? Isn't this puzzling? Aren't you frustrated, wondering what's going on? And like I'm deliberately sort of ramping that up, because that's the kind of book I like to read. I like to be just so desperate to know, and then at the end, when you find out, it's an amazing revelation.
Well, it's working, because as I was reading, and again, I'm only just a few chapters in because it just got in the mail. It just got to me yesterday, but I'm so hooked. I have to know, what is wrong with this woman on the train who's walking around in circles and delaying the coach, and everybody's mad. And it's also your details, right? Because we've all been on a motor coach or on a train where you're trying to board, you're outside, you're cold, someone's holding up the line, and you're like, come on, move along, and you're just getting so angsty waiting. And so you also have those wonderfully relatable details of, you're trying to get to your seat and someone won't get out of the way. And it just, I don't know. I absolutely love both those everyday details that we can all relate to, coupled with what is wrong with this woman. I've got to know. And why does she think that, that Catchpole isn't who he says he is? What would possess her to say that he's not who he says he is? I mean, it all just, you keep us going, and it's so artfully done.
Oh, thank you.
So let me ask you, what's some of the worst writing advice that you've ever got that you would like to disabuse the mystery world of of this? And what's some of the best writing advice you've ever gotten that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, best and worst writing advice. I can only really think of it in relation to specific books. So somebody once said to me in my very first crime novel, when it wasn't working and I knew something was wrong with it, but I couldn't work out what it was. I later did work out what it was, but when I was trying to work it out, somebody said to me, I know what you need to do is add a sinister housekeeper, like Miss Danvers in Rebecca. And I was like, no, I'm fairly sure that I do not need to add a sinister housekeeper. So that sticks in my mind.
That's very specific advice, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know really. I mean, I generally find that advice, both about writing and about life, is much more, it's really, I love getting advice,
Mm.
but mainly because it just gives me some fixed options to think about. So if someone says to me, you should write this kind of book, you should write that kind of book, I'll very rarely think, oh yes, I should do that. But I'm very likely to think, how is that suggestion making me feel? If it's making me feel, oh yeah, then that suggests there's some truth in it for me. If it's making me think, no, you don't get it, then that suggests to me that I should back away from that advice. But I always find it really interesting to hear what other people think I should do and write. When I wanted to write my How to Hold a Grudge book, a few people said to me, don't do that, because you're not a self-help writer, you're a crime writer. You should write another crime novel because that's what you do. And that felt like very bad advice, because I really wanted to write a book about how to hold a grudge.
Yeah. I love that. You're not constraining yourself and or allowing yourself to be constrained or pigeonholed into poetry or self-help or mystery. And you're a woman who does it all, which is absolutely fantastic. And I love that you have, resisted that advice, but taken something from it as well, which is say, how does this resonate and what is there for me to learn in this, which I think is such an interesting way of approaching advice. When you're writing these, do you have critique partners? Do you have first readers?
I have a writer friend, and she and I are in a writing group of two, and we always read each other's work before anyone else sees it. And she's amazing.
Mm,
She's such a brilliant, detailed, pedantic editor, and she spots like dozens of things that I can improve. Like she's always right about everything. It's just amazing. So, and I do the same for her, although I suspect I'm not quite as forensic as she is, but that works really well. And then after that, it's my agent and my editor who see things next.
and is it the same thing when both your agent, and your editor provide advice? Do you think to yourself, what is it that I can take from this without taking the advice about the scary housekeeper? Is it a practice
My,
of
my
implementing?
editor, my UK editor, actually not for Poirot, I have a different editor for Poirot, but both my UK editors are very good. And whenever they suggest something, they're usually right. So with them, I just have the experience usually of thinking, yeah, 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 they're right, they're right, they're right. Very occasionally, I'll think, no, I don't want to do that. And that's fine. Like I don't, when you get editorial feedback from an editor, you don't have to obey every suggestion, but I usually follow most of them because you just can't see everything as the author. You need someone to show you.
Exactly. Exactly. I also have my one critique partner is a very dear friend of mine,
Right.
Andrea. How did you meet yours?
When I first moved to Cambridge, where I live now, I was doing a book event at Waterstones, and she came to my event and introduced herself just as a fellow crime writer who lived in Cambridge. And we got chatting. I don't actually remember how the writing group thing came about, but one of us, or I think she suggested it, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's a nice idea." And we just tried it, and it was amazing. We both thought it was brilliant, so we've kept it up ever since.
How long has it been?
Nearly 10 years. Yeah.
Yay! Oh, that's awesome. What a lovely testament to female friendship and to crime writer crime writer
Yeah, yeah.
support. I
I should
absolutely love
say
that.
who she is actually. Her name's Emily Winslow,
Oh
and
yes.
she's also a William Morrow author and a very talented writer. But yeah, she's a brilliant editor for me. I don't know what my books would do without her.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful testament to her and to your friendship. Really, really lovely. Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like we've been chatting for 30 seconds, but I see that we're almost out of time. So let's enter the speed round. Sophie, are you ready?
Yes. Oh, I didn't realize there was a speed round, but yes. Let me get into speedier mode.
Yes, get into speedier mode. What's your weirdest writing ritual? Do you have one?
A weird writing ritual.
Show us your weird, Sophie.
I'm looking at my daughter in case she can think of something.
She probably
Well, I drink an awful lot of tea. I don't know whether that's particularly weird.
And how do you take your tea?
I drink a tea called Lapsang Souchong, which is a smoky kind of Chinese tea. And I
Ooh,
have it, probably I'm a Philistine for admitting this, but I have it with milk.
I love tea with milk. That I started
That's
drinking
not
that
a
when I
very weird ritual, though, is it? I should be able to think of a weirder one, but I can't at the moment.
That's okay. That's totally okay. Are you a morning writer or an afternoon writer? Do you rise with the sun or are you up late night writing?
I used to be very much a late night writer, and then as I got older, I found that I started to get too tired to write in the evening. So now I would say I'm mainly a sort of mid-morning to late afternoon writer.
I love
I'm
it.
not good at early mornings.
No, I definitely don't do early mornings. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading the new novel by Nikki French
Ooh,
called House of Correction, which is brilliant so far.
excellent. What's one book that's changed your life?
The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Excellent.
Brilliant book.
You're going to sleepaway camp. For your roommate, do you choose Arthur Conan Doyle or Edgar Allan Poe?
Oh. um, I mean, I don't know a huge amount about either of them. Can I choose Agatha Christie?
Yes, you can, because you write for Agatha Christie. Absolutely.
And if I couldn't have her, I'd probably have Daphne du Maurier.
Oh, yes, good one. That's a good one too.
No offense to Edgar or Arthur, I'm sure they're lovely, but yeah.
Would you rather have dinner with Bram Stoker or Anne Rice?
Again, I just don't know enough about them. If I could have dinner with absolutely anybody famous, I'd probably have dinner with Larry David or Jerry Seinfeld.
Okay, so you
Or
like
ideally
comedy.
Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld.
That's a dinner party I want to come to. And again, I think you're very funny in a subtly funny way. So I see why you like them.
Yeah, they definitely want to have dinner with me, if only they knew I existed.
They definitely want to have dinner with you because you get to write Agatha Christie books with the blessings of Agatha Christie's estate and family, which is an incredible honor and speaks to, again, the quality of your writing and the reverence and respect and dedication with which you treat not just the craft and the genre, but with her names and her books and the world that she's created. And to carry on that mantle is, you're the perfect person to do it. It's so amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. Sophie, what is one thing that you wish I had asked or want to share with us?
One thing I wish you. Oh, well, I tell you one thing I will share, and this is a weird thing that I have. I have two things in common with Agatha Christie beyond the fact that I write about the character. One is that she was a massive swimming fan, and so am I.
I did not know that.
Every day if I possibly can. And Agatha used to love swimming in the sea. I love swimming in the sea. I swim in Cambridge in the river near my house, which is freezing cold, but I absolutely love it. And the other weird thing that Agatha and I have in common is our dogs. Agatha's favorite ever dog was a wire fox terrier called Peter. And when I got my first dog, Brewster, who is there in the background, I didn't know that Agatha had a wire fox terrier, and Brewster's a Welsh terrier, and I got him from the Welsh terrier breeder. And when I showed a photo of him to Agatha Christie's family, they were like, he looks exactly like Peter, Agatha's dog. And they showed me a photo of Agatha with Peter. I was like, that is actually weird, because they look so similar. They're exactly apart. There's a subtle difference between the two breeds, but they're very much the same genre of dog, and that was really weird. So
that is really weird, and feeling very meant to be.
Although I know that's kind of superstitious thinking, but I did think this is a very weird thing to happen.
Well, I guess I'm superstitious because I'm here for the woo. I'm here for the woo. I love it, and I believe in signs, and I believe that these things come to us as signposts to guide us on our way. And clearly, you are the right person to be doing this work and carrying on her work and bringing these stories to us. So thank you, Sophie Hannah. I am such a huge fan of your work. You are absolutely incredible, brilliant, gifted writer. And thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for all of this. And I love having you here on A Mighty Please.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great fun.
Thank you. I want to say that my partner in crime, pun intended, Margaret Pinard, also an author, is managing things for us over on Facebook. She has been doing pull quotes and posting links to all of things that Sophie said, and all of Sophie's social media and website, and our special partnership with bookshop.org, which is featuring Sophie's book and benefits and supports independent bookstores. So please do buy The Killings at Kingfisher Hill through bookshop.org and support our beloved independent bookstores. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Sophie. And we will see you next time here on A Mighty Please.